I'm in my early 20s, athletic, charismatic. I make an average of 10K a month doing fitness coaching. I live in my own apartment with no roommates. Think I've got some good style, masculine energy. But despite all that, I still have a voice in my head whispering that you're insecure and you're really not that successful. I self-manage extreme GERD, which I think is like acid reflux.
GERD, yeah.
GERD and some anxiety. And when they flare up, I feel out of control. My mind goes dark. You're still weak. You're just a fraud hiding behind your money and your daily habits. I grew up with a loving mom, but my dad was absent, angry, and constantly chasing women, 3 divorces, and then passed away shortly after marrying another single mom. Didn't have a lot of real friends until I was 18. And even now I feel like I don't fully fit in with either the crowd I left behind or the one that I've sort of leveled up into. I'm just looking for some real perspective from the older guys who have been there. You guys are doing the right things, building your life, but what happens when your mind still tries to sabotage you? Maybe not necessarily looking for action steps, but more perspective from guys that have been through the same thing.
There's a really good book that I'm revisiting called Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz. You want the most modern version with Dan Kennedy adding his insight. Dr. Maxwell Maltz was a plastic surgeon, one of the first plastic surgeons. I think he was dealing with pilots from World War II that had serious burns, and he was trying to do like the reconstructive surgery to fix their appearance. And what he found was, no matter how good the outcome was, like the outwardly outcome, if their mind's eye was still fucked and still locked in a place of, I'm a victim, I'm damaged, my past dictates this about my future sort of thing, no matter how good they ended up looking, that's where they would default to, was that broken mindset. It's a really good book. I think everybody should read it. I'm sort of going through it because I read it like 15, 20 years ago. It was written in the 60s or something like that. So I downloaded the audiobook and I'm just listening to it again, while I'm walking. But it's like, you can psych yourself out of a lot of shit and convince yourself of a lot of stuff that just ain't true or doesn't happen or doesn't need to happen. Telling yourself a story about, my broken childhood, or my dad was this, or my mom did this. And, it's the whole like resentment and guilt stuff that we've talked about before, right? It's like filling a big bag full of bricks and writing shit on it. My dad was a slut. My mom was a bitch. My dad. And it's like, you write all this stuff and you throw it in a bag and you carry it around. It's like, nobody cares. It doesn't matter. And the only person that really seems to care is the one that wants to be the victim, which is the people that are always like holding on to that resentment and guilt. One is geared towards somebody else. One is geared towards yourself. All you got to do is put the bag of bricks in and walk away from the BS. It's tougher to do than it is to say, but you can reprogram your mind. You can put the correct mindset, the correct software programming in there so that you stop thinking, in your past self.
Psycho-Cybernetics, you said.
Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz. A really good book. Get the most modern version.
Okay. Yeah, I'll check it out. Yeah, I mean, I talk about this a lot too. I mean, like the stuff and this is something that I didn't develop this, and this was not something that I created. And obviously there's probably a name for this, but we talked about it a little bit. Like, again, we talk about, like, we don't get into like a lot of the woo-woo stuff, like, oh, I'm manifesting this, but the stories that you tell yourself and what you tell yourself about yourself or your reality or your world can become true.
Yeah.
But they've also said that memory, there's research and there's studies that show that memory is a terribly unreliable mechanism of determining what actually happened and what was true. That your interpretation of past events using just your memory, I think they used 9/11 for an example. They ran a study. They said, hey, like, they asked people where they were on 9/11 20 years ago, 5 years ago when it happened. And then like another 20 years later, they asked those same people again. And the stories were completely different, like off the reservation, different people, different time, different place, setting, etc. And so if you are continuing to hold on to these patterns, and like you said, you're saying my dad was this, my mom was that, because of XYZ, I am therefore ABC, you are creating the narrative and only reinforcing something that doesn't serve you. It's anything. I don't believe in, and I didn't create this. I know I'm ripping this off from another creator, but I don't believe in anything that takes my power away. I don't believe in giving power to something that takes away my ability to do something about it and do something to change my plight or change where I am. Because when things happen to you, that automatically means you're asserting that you could not have done anything about it, and therefore you cannot do anything to fix it, which is just complete BS. And so this is life, man. He's got a lot of great stuff going for him so far as a 23-year-old. I've seen pictures of the dude. He's in jacked shape, like he's ripped up, got a lot of energy. He's a young dude. He's taking care of himself. He's doing a lot of things at a young age that a lot of guys take a long time to figure out. And you're right. Like, he's got to change some mental models. He's got to start telling himself some different stories. He's got to create sort of a new reality that he gets to be the hero of, as long as it's within reason and it's not out to lunch. But yeah, you've got to be very careful about the stories you tell yourself, because they become your reality, man. And 99% of the time, the stories that you tell yourself ain't true in the first place. Yeah,
it's been said that you should never believe a prediction that doesn't empower you.
Right.
Right. So, I mean, if you're, if you're telling yourself over and over again that you're not worthy of success, wealth, beautiful woman, good friends, nice car, whatever, you're going to keep doing things that will, sabotage what it is that you're saying that you want. People say, oh, I want to look fit and healthy. Like, I want to be healthy. And then they'll go out and they'll buy like a big bag of ho-hos and order an extra large pizza and slam that thing back with beer and just sit around all weekend. Right. So it's like, you say one thing and do something else. As we talk about with relationships and, with women, it's like, believe what she does, believe her choices, not so much what she says, believe her choices. Same thing with people. I want to be fit and sexy, but they eat crappy food and they don't exercise. Right.
Yeah.
All right, guys, I really hope that you enjoyed that clip. If you want to check out the full-length podcast episode, you can find that right over here. Also, make sure you visit my website over here, where you'll find my supplements, the opportunity to book me privately one-on-one for coaching, and most importantly, my new School of Unplugging, which you'll find on the Courses tab. Newer to the channel? Hit subscribe.